Welcome to the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast, offering tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of All Things Book Marketing. I'm your host, Olivia McCoy, and my special guest today is longtime mentor and industry friend, Chelsea Richards, who is also the marketing manager at Greenleaf Book Group. We used to work together at Greenleaf, and Chelsea really helped me just learn all about the industry and grow from those starting stages. So I'm super excited we've been able to keep connected and now talking on the podcast. So hi, welcome.
Hi, Olivia. It's so great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to join the podcast. It was wonderful getting to work with Olivia for several years together at Greenleaf Book Group, both in the marketing department. And so it's wonderful now to be able to continue to work with you on our shared authors that you're working with at Smith and we're working with at Greenleaf. And it's fantastic to be here and to talk with you this morning.
So obviously, I know you, you know me, but our listeners and watchers don't. So why don't you tell us more about your work and what you do to help authors?
Of course. So I am the marketing manager at Greenleaf Book Group. I've been with Greenleaf for about 8 years now. And so my work at Greenleaf is really focused on helping our authors get their books out into the world, to reach their readers, to activate their networks and to grow those networks for them through things like services that help to promote discoverability for them on Amazon, which of course we're going to be talking about a lot today, through things that are generating reviews, whether those are from consumers or whether those are from respected trade publications within the industry, and generally just helping them across the board, no matter what genre they fall under, to reach their target readers and to provide them with strategies that enable them to do that.
Incredible. So kind of a jack of all trades.
Exactly.
Do a little bit of everything.
Exactly. And of course, I lead our marketing team. So I have 3 wonderful marketing strategists that work with me, and we work together to support our authors. And then I provide them, of course, with guidance as the manager. But we are definitely very much a team, as you know and remember from your time at Greenleaf, and it's very much a collaborative environment. And we're all part of that same team with that same end goal of helping our authors reach their readers.
So then continuing on the theme of bestseller this month, we brought you on to talk about Amazon bestseller because that's something I feel like is known about, but not actively discussed a ton. So let's dive into that and we'll start with what is Amazon bestseller?
Yep, absolutely. So from a high level perspective, an Amazon bestseller ranking means that your book is ranking in the top 100 books in a given category. So anywhere, whether you are number 1 or number 100, your book is considered an Amazon bestseller.
And how often is that updated or announced?
Yep. So those rankings are based on sales within a given category during a 24-hour sales cycle. And those rankings update every 2 hours.
Every 2 hours. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I've told authors several times that like don't sit there and stare at it. It's really easy to watch it and refresh the page every 2 hours, but like pay attention when you think you're most likely to hit that bestseller status.
Exactly.
And I know we're going to get to that, but I do want to first talk about how Amazon bestseller is different than other bestseller lists like the former Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and USA Today.
Exactly. Yep. So with those larger bestseller lists, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, those lists are really focused on sales within typically the publication week or 1 week time frame. And you would want to, when you're gunning for a Wall Street Journal, USA, New York Times bestseller, you want to drive pre-orders. That's really, really important for you to drive those pre-orders and have those pre-orders be sustained leading up to your publication, because then when they are released during your publication week, that's what those lists are going to be monitoring relative to other books that are publishing within that same publication week. And the other piece of that is that you also want to have a variety of different outlets. So you're not wanting to only sell books online. You're wanting to sell in airport bookstores, Barnes and Noble, online as well, but also indie bookstores, independent retailers as well. So you're wanting to have a good cross section of retailers where your book is being purchased, and also geographic locations, because that's indicating to those lists that your book is organically selling across all of those different retailer uh, sites and locations.
So a lot of bulk sales and pre-orders, and like it
Correct.
happens occasionally, I'd say kind of rarely,
Mhm.
that a backlist book that's been previously published other years hits those
Mhm.
bestseller lists, but that's usually, you hear about that from like a viral book talk book.
Yes.
It happens like
Yes.
so rarely, so I don't even talk about it that much with my authors because it really is kind of a unicorn moment.
Yes,
But
definitely.
Amazon bestseller
Mhm.
sounds like maybe a little bit more achievable for audiences and authors who
Definitely.
have a really solid network and
Of
strategy
course.
plan. So what
Yeah.
goes into becoming an Amazon bestseller? What's a good
Yep.
strategy to reach that?
Yep, and we work with our authors all the time on Amazon bestseller strategies to ensure that first and foremost, we've got them in the right categories for them. So Amazon's category system, I tell our authors that it's like genre shelving within a brick and mortar bookstore. But because those categories are digital and they are updated consistently throughout time on Amazon, there are a lot of options available to us of subcategories that wouldn't necessarily be available to us in a brick and mortar bookstore. And that's to our advantage, because the more category availability there is, the more opportunity there is for us to shelve a book in those particular categories, and also for us to get into those more niche categories that give us a stronger chance of achieving that bestseller status. So we work with our authors. We do a lot of deep research on our end to see, first and foremost, what are the categories that align with the core content and themes of this book? And then we look at, okay, so what's the data of the average number of sales needed within a 24-hour sales cycle to achieve bestseller status within those given categories? So as you can imagine, the broader the category on Amazon, generally, the more competitive the category is, and the greater the number of sales that are going to be needed to achieve that bestseller status. And then the more niche, the opposite. Typically, you need a lower number of sales, less number of competition. So for us, it's really important to have a good cross section of those broader categories that give the authors more chance for discoverability, and maybe have a slightly higher number of sales needed, but still an attainable number of sales needed to get in that top 100, coupled with some more niche categories that have that lower number of sales needed and give them a stronger chance of not only achieving that Amazon bestseller status, but maybe even being in the top 10 in a given category.
I love that balance of the big, broad categories and the really small subcategories. Because, like, you can find a category that's got 10 to 50 books in it and you're
Mhm.
automatically an Amazon bestseller, but then who is going to find you in that
Right,
category? So there's
right,
kind of a
exactly.
sweet spot that you
Yep,
have to find. And it's just neat that Amazon does offer that, because you do have, oh, it's a memoir, but it's kind of a specific memoir. But in brick and mortar and other retail places, it's just listed memoir. Whereas
mhm,
in Amazon, you can niche down to specific type of memoir. Who is writing the
yep,
memoir? What's it about? What are topics within it? I know an author that did a grief was a big part of the memoir, and so it was grief, loss, coping memoir was like a category that
yep,
worked really well for them.
right.
So that is,
And then you're reaching the readers who are actively looking for that specific content. So we're not, just putting you in this broad umbrella category that has so many different subcategory options for it, and so many different, reader demographics and profiles that are looking for different types of content and different types of advice. So it's really good to be able to get honed down into that more niche subcategory so that we're reaching your target readers.
and then also we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the algorithm, because it's
Yes,
a
yes.
huge part of Amazon and it's kind of Amazon's proprietary secret sauce. We don't
Mhm.
know exactly how it works. They're not super informative, talkative about how it works, but we do know that there are benefits to being in the
Yep.
right category and performing well in it because it educates the
Correct.
algorithm.
Yep. Yep. So that's step one in terms of, a strategy behind achieving Amazon bestseller status. I'm going to just touch on step two quickly, and then
Yes.
we'll talk about the algorithm. But step two is then activating and mobilizing your network.
Yes.
So we work with authors to talk to them about, okay, so let's think about the types of people that you are connected with. So authors, may think that they don't have that large of a network, or they may not feel that they have people that are very well connected. But once we get into those conversations and start talking about it, and they start thinking about the types of people that they're connected to, whether that's personally, professionally, throughout their years of their career, they start to realize, oh, well, actually, I do know so and so, and you know what? She's got a really great following on Instagram, or this friend of mine has a really strong LinkedIn presence, or my other friend has a great newsletter, or my other friend is just really talkative, great word of mouth, and he's going to be kind of a spokesperson for me in that format. So it's really thinking about those types of people that you're connected to, and what is the correct call to action or ask that you're going to give to each of those different groups of people. So that's what we talk about with our authors is let's think about the different groups of people that you're connected to. Let's think about how they can best support you and support your book. So one ask might be if someone has a really strong social media following, we'd want them to post on social media on publication day, because that they've got that captive audience that's already listening to them, that's already going to them for advice, recommendations, and that trusts their judgment. So that's going to be the strongest support that that particular person could give our author to boost their bestseller push. There might be other people who don't have that level of of audience behind them. However, they have been part of the process with the author, since the book was just a fledgling idea, and they're willing to do whatever they can to support that author. So perhaps they're going to read an early copy of the book, and then they're going to share a review. Because as you know, reviews are really important for creating social proof for an author, and for generating those early reviews so that when someone who's outside of that author's network comes to their Amazon book page, they're not seeing crickets. They want to see that engagement. They want to see those thoughtful reviews. So that's really a great way to tap into those individuals and ask them to share a review on publication day or during publication week. And then when you tell them and everybody else, you're going to ask them to go to Amazon on publication day and buy a copy of that book, because ultimately, that is the biggest driver, and that ties into your question about Amazon's algorithm. So yes, so those rankings, like I said, are based on sales within that 24-hour sales cycle. They update every 2 hours based on other books that are listed and selling within that same category. And the benefit there is not only being able to say that your book is an Amazon bestseller, but that it triggers Amazon's algorithm to start recommending the book and creating more discoverability for the book. And anything that we can do to get Amazon's algorithm working in our favor and promoting our authors, that's gold, because that's going to be where the great majority of their sales are going to come from in general. And so to have that algorithm working in our favor from the outset is a really big win for an author. And so Amazon will then recommend their book. If their book is ranking as a bestseller, that's a trigger for Amazon to recommend their book in those browsing and or in those recommendation carousels. So when you're on Amazon, whether you're purchasing books or other products, Amazon will give you recommendations. Customers who bought this also bought. You might also like.
That's what I
And
was
that
going to say.
Yep, exactly. We're on the same page. And that's based on each individual user's unique browsing and purchase history. So to the same point, we talked about reaching target readers with that more niche subcategory. We're reaching target readers by activating that algorithm, because Amazon is going to be promoting the book to people who actively have a browsing and purchase history in that genre. So not only is Amazon recommending your book to prospective readers, they're recommending your book to prospective readers who are most likely to be interested in your content and then to convert to a sale and to become a buyer.
And then something to note too, because sometimes we're talking about, yes, you're going to get this extra algorithmic promotion. You're going to be in that, you may like this because you like this, all those carousels. You may not see that. Your network might not see that
Yes,
because they're
correct.
ideally already buying and reviewing the books. The algorithm's like, I don't need to target them
Yeah.
because clearly they're doing it on their own.
Hmm.
But just keep in mind that just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just,
Absolutely.
it's a smart AI, smart algorithm, so it knows who's already
Yeah.
participating and being active and who could potentially be but isn't yet.
Exactly, exactly. And there are also emails, in addition to those on-site recommendations. There are also emails that go out based on individual users' browsing and purchase history. So there's a variety of different ways that achieving that bestseller status and triggering Amazon's algorithm then work to the benefit of the authors and to promoting their books to interested readers, and to converting those to sales.
And that algorithm has a long memory because
It
I'm
does.
sitting here looking up Amazon for my current authors, and I'm still getting served those recommendations from Greenleaf authors that I've previously looked up and worked with.
Yeah,
Because it's like, we see you haven't bought the book yet, but you've
yeah,
looked it up a few times, or other books in the genre, you might like that. I'm like,
yeah. Yeah,
that's great. I love that. But
they're great at retargeting. They are excellent. So
yeah,
bringing you back to, hey, remember when you looked at this? We think you might like it. And that's really important because on average, it takes about 6 to 8 impressions. So times that someone is exposed to a book, to a product, for them to then convert to a sale. So it's really important to keep putting that book in front of somebody who is new to an author and new to their book, to keep that book top of mind. Because if they just see it the one time, they're less likely to then take action on it. Whereas if it keeps coming up for them, just the same way in life, and if you've got word of mouth recommendations and you hear it from one person and you may say, "Oh, okay, well, I'll consider it." But if multiple people keep recommending the same thing to you, you're going to be much more likely to heed that recommendation and to, look for more information on it, and make a purchasing decision from there.
it's also great for those impulse buying decisions.
Hmm.
Fine, I've seen this book everywhere. I might as well get it. And it's one click away.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's continue talking about the benefits of
Yeah.
Amazon bestseller because I do know there are people out there saying, maybe Amazon isn't their favorite retailer for
Mhm.
valid and invalid
Yep.
reasons, whatever reasoning
Oh.
there may be. I also know there's some people that maybe question the validity of Amazon bestseller.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the actual benefits that come from it and how you respond to those.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, I would say, everyone is going to have their retailer of choice.
Sure.
The great majority of people are going to select Amazon just by virtue of it being, it's one of the largest, if not the largest, obviously largest online retailer, and place where people are going to go to make purchases not only of books, but of all of the other things that they need in their
Convenient,
lives.
easy, accessible, and that's
Exactly.
something that is worth noting.
Yeah, so that is going to be for the majority of readers, and purchasers, that is going to be their retailer of choice for all of those reasons. That being said, of course, there are going to be those readers that want to purchase with Barnes and Noble or would prefer to support a local or independent bookstore. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We love a sale wherever the sale comes from.
Yes.
Wherever the sale comes from, we love a sale. So I would say, just in terms of, for an author creating an online presence, for instance, they would want to have all of those different retailer options available so that the reader can select their retailer of choice. That being said, as we've discussed, Amazon will be that primary retailer, and because Amazon is going to be that primary retailer across genres, it's really important for us to focus our efforts on that retailer that is going to generate the great majority of their sales.
Yeah.
So like we already discussed, hitting that Amazon bestseller that one time, you are then from that point on able to say that your book is a best-selling book on Amazon. And actually, you don't necessarily have to say Amazon specifically. You can say that your book, if you wanted to, you can say best-selling author of XYZ book. You don't necessarily have to designate Amazon. I probably would, just to be really clear about where that best-selling status came from. But you are able to note that your book is an Amazon bestseller from that day forward. And what we do with our authors is when they achieve Amazon bestseller status, we make sure to highlight that, because those rankings are so fluid and they can change within that, every 2 hours. We make sure to take screenshots of those bestseller rankings, and then we add that bestseller language to the top of their book page. So we might say something broad, just like Amazon bestseller, or we may specify the top 1 to 3 categories that they hit to highlight what categories they're ranking as a bestseller in. And also that means that when a consumer is coming to their book page on Amazon, that is right at the top of their book page, right above their book description, and that is going to live there forever until we decide to make a change. So that's really important to be able to highlight that there. And then we also create social graphics for our authors to highlight either Amazon bestseller rankings, or there's also another opportunity for an author to rank, and that's in the hot new releases. So the difference between Amazon bestseller and Amazon hot new release is a bestseller ranking is a ranking of the top 100 in all of the books in a given category, whereas a hot new release is a top 100 ranking of all of the books that have published in the last 30 days in a given category. So you've got a smaller pool to work with there, which again increases your chances of achieving that hot new release. I just had several authors publish this week. And we did bestseller strategies for them, and all of them hit bestseller. And in fact, some of them even hit in all of their categories, both print and Kindle, and hit #1 new release across multiple categories as well.
I agree with preferring honesty about being an Amazon bestseller, but
Yeah.
there is something to be said about when you're talking to those naysayers who maybe didn't
Mhm.
afford to believe in you. Well, I'm a best-selling author, so
Mhm.
that's always a little bonus to be able
Yeah.
to throw that.
Yeah. So there's a ton of ways that you can highlight that. You can add that to your website. You can add the Amazon bestseller seal to your website. You can share those social graphics, and I definitely encourage authors to share those social graphics, because especially if you have been really activating your network and they have been part of the process with you for weeks or maybe even months, to let them know that the actions that they took, sharing on social, posting a review, recommending your book to other people in their networks, purchasing a copy on publication date, to close the loop there and say, the actions that you took helped my book to achieve bestseller. That just makes sure that you're basically paying it forward to that network who paid it forward to you. And ultimately, they're there and supporting you because they care about you and they care about your book, and they want to see you and your book succeed. So to be able to share that end result that they had a part in making happen is a really, I think, a really nice way to say thank you.
And that's something I talk about a lot in my consultations with authors who are maybe
Mhm.
nervous about self promotion or don't feel super comfortable. You can
Yep.
always tie it back to thanking the people that helped you
Yes.
get there. And
Yes,
I do think
absolutely.
it is those people who are getting you to Amazon bestseller, to getting you to those other notable places and really those successes. And so it's never a bad idea to pull in. Thank you for everyone who got me to Amazon bestseller. Thank you for
Yes.
all the hard work that went into making my book an Amazon bestseller. Those are always great ways to self promote, but in a kind of
Without
mindful way.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And that's the same advice that we give to our authors that are feeling a bit uncertain about that as well.
Humble brag, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So you mentioned social media, website, book,
Yep.
top of your Amazon book description,
Yep.
putting it
And
up,
then,
talking about yourself.
yeah, and then that algorithm,
Yeah.
for me, that algorithm is the primary benefit. Yes, from an outward perspective and from kind of a flashy thing to be able to say that you're an Amazon bestseller and you're able to update the book description, you're able to add that bestseller seal to a social graphic. Those are all fantastic. And definitely those are great accomplishments to recognize and to share. But for me, the long-term effects of hitting an Amazon bestseller and triggering that algorithm are the biggest benefits of achieving that bestseller ranking, and having Amazon be recommending the book and keeping the book in front of people who are most likely to buy it, because that's going to have that long-term benefit for the author of reaching new readers and of generating more sales for their book.
You also mentioned a few minutes back that you can hit Amazon bestseller in multiple editions of your book. So the
Yes,
categories you pick for print is different than the categories you pick for
yes,
ebook.
yes.
And my understanding is that ebook is a little easier to reach Amazon bestseller because the categories are a little bit smaller.
In general,
In general, in
I
general.
will say romance genre,
Yeah,
no.
it's true.
Because the great majority of romance readers are ebook readers, and those categories on the Kindle side of things are just as hard as the print side, and in some cases harder to achieve. But from a
Yeah.
broad strokes perspective, in general, the ebook categories do tend to be more accessible, easier to achieve in terms of number of sales needed to hit bestseller status. And that's a great point, because that gives you, that variation between print and Kindle categories gives you even more opportunity to achieve bestseller status and to achieve bestseller status in a greater variety of categories. So when we're doing that category research, we do look to see if there is a corresponding Kindle category to align with the print category that we are recommending. And if there is, we will recommend that as well. However, if there's a slight variation, or maybe there's a Kindle category that doesn't exist on the print side, we've definitely had that too. So that gives an author the opportunity to rank, like I said, in those multiple categories, and gives them the opportunity to, in some cases, have a better shot of achieving that bestseller ranking with a lower threshold of sales needed to garner that bestseller ranking.
I know, I totally agree with the romance books. Those really niche genres tend to have very specific performance
Yeah.
trends. Same for like a highly designed book. I imagine doesn't do super well in Kindle because they just doesn't, it's not the same as seeing the
Right.
picture or
Right.
illustration. And then randomly, curiously, with the rise of audiobooks, have you been seeing more audiobooks hit bestseller, Amazon bestseller?
We have. So that is definitely kind of a newer area as well, and kind of has some nuances in terms of, what you're able to submit. We don't have quite as much control on the audiobook side of things as we do with the print and Kindle side of things. And that's kind of just a function of Amazon. Being Amazon and sometimes making life a little bit more difficult than it really needs to be. That being said, that is another avenue for achieving bestseller status. And yes, you can be a bestseller in your print, Kindle, and your audiobook, and those can all be either the same category or different categories. And just the same for the differences between the sales needed in print and Kindle. There's going to be a difference in the number of sales needed to achieve bestseller in the audiobook side of things as well.
I love that even the Amazon experts, the people that really know Amazon, can still admit to some frustrations and some
Yeah.
difficulties with working with it
Yeah.
sometimes. But that's
Yeah.
just
It's
the
very
nature.
much, you can't live with them, you
Yeah.
can't live without them.
Yes, for sure. So let's wrap it up with your number one piece of advice for authors looking to reach that Amazon bestseller status.
Yep. I'm going to say it's a twofold piece of advice.
Okay.
And one is that we are going to recommend looking for those categories that are going to give you the strongest chance of being found by your target audience, and are going to be accessible for you and for your network to achieve that bestseller ranking based on those sales numbers. And two, do not be afraid to talk to your network and to tell them about this bestseller push, and to keep reminding them about it. Don't be afraid to do that, because these are the people that support you, that are behind you and your book, and that want to see you succeed, almost as much as you want to see yourself succeed. And we at Greenleaf and you at Smith want to see them succeed. So don't be afraid to tap into those people and to ask for help, because ultimately it will be a group and a team effort to get you to that goal of that bestseller ranking.
Exactly. And while it may be tempting to put your book in a camera photography, how to cleaning manual category, it's probably not going to help you reach your target audience of sci-fi, fantasy, romance reader.
Correct. And Amazon is very smart, as you said, and they very much are looking at those categories, and making sure that if you're submitting a category that is wildly inaccurate for your genre, they are likely going to remove that category, because they have, they need to be in service of their customers and making sure that the products that they are selling through their site are being accurately represented. That's key for them too, so that their customers are getting an accurate representation of the product that they're purchasing. And to your point, it's not going to benefit you to try to quote unquote game the system. It's much better for us to choose those niche categories within your broader umbrella category that are a really good fit for you and that are actually reading those sci-fi readers, not people looking for camera assistance.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. How can our listeners, watchers get in touch with you and learn more about Greenleaf?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get in touch with me specifically, you can reach out to me at crichards@greenleafbookgroup.com. You can also look out for Greenleaf across all social media channels. We're active across all social media, and you can also check our website at greenleafbookgroup.com. And if you wanted to get in touch with the broader marketing department, that's going to be marketing@greenleafbookgroup.com. And either myself or someone from the marketing team can assist you as well. And we're always happy to chat and to see what we can do to assist authors.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, it's really great to talk with you and to reconnect.
And listeners, watchers, if you like this episode, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with anyone else that might be interested. We also have the last episode we published was with an author who reached the Wall Street Journal bestseller and what it took to reach that bigger list. We also have a webinar coming up. It's actually going to be tomorrow by the time this episode is published, but you can always check out our webinar series and our blog for any news. We're going to be covering bestseller there too tomorrow. Keep an eye out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many services, visit smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.